Hello and welcome to the Bliss Career Podcast, a podcast where we talk about everything career. I am your host, Dan Solomon, and in this podcast, I am bringing you interviews with people just like you, people who were once in your shoes. I'm also going to be talking with HR managers as well as people who are experts in their various fields. We have a lot of stuff to unpack today, so please sit tight and relax, and let's get to it then. Hi everyone. Today I have José in the room. Thanks, José, for taking your time to have this chat with me. Very, very much appreciated. So José is currently part of the Top Start program for the Top Start International Business Leader program with BASF. And I decided to steal him a bit, or to steal his time, so he can actually share a bit more light into his journey, how he got into the Top Start program, even in the pandemic, because I think he started in the middle of the pandemic. So that's quite interesting. And he also has an interesting story. So José, thanks for taking your time to join this call today. I'm really looking forward to learn a lot from you today.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Awesome. Let's just start with, so you briefly talking about yourself. Who are you, where you're from, and just we'll take it from there just to get a bit of an idea.
Sounds good. Well, my name is José de los Llanos. I am originally from Madrid, Spain. There I did my bachelor's, where I studied aerospace engineering. And then in the last year of my bachelor's, I had the opportunity to do an exchange abroad. In fact, it was in Germany, in Munich. During that exchange, I realized that I quite liked the university where I was studying and the country. So I decided to apply for my master's also in Munich. I got in, then I studied my master's also in aerospace engineering in Munich, all the while having several experiences as a working student and as an intern. And after finishing my master's, during which, by the way, I was also in Singapore, in Asia, I joined BASF as part of the Top Start International Business Leader program. And here we are today, 4 months down the line already since I joined the company.
Okay, awesome. So I see you studied aerospace, right? How did you go from aerospace into so if I look at your journey from aerospace and you're now in the business leader program, how is the connection? What actually intrigued you to apply for this program?
Okay, good question. So I think I need to then maybe give you a little bit more background so that you understand. When I finished high school, I did a technology high school. We are already segregated, if you study social sciences or economy in Spain, or you go rather for technology. So I was always good with physics, math, numbers, all this stuff. So I did the technology one. And once I finished, I had my admission to university exam, and I got pretty good grades, right? So I knew I wanted to do engineering, but it wasn't really that clear to me, what is really appealing to me. And then, honestly speaking, aerospace engineering sounded pretty cool. I mean, I was never especially passionate about aircraft or space or anything like that. But, when compared to other types of engineering, it was the one that appealed the most to me. So then I went and I studied aerospace engineering. There's not much more behind it. All the while during my studies, what I realized is that what we're studying there is highly technical and highly specialized. And I also realized that for me, while I enjoyed very much studying and getting, deep into the details, I always like to understand the whole picture of a business, of a certain technology or a certain market, or whatever it is. 2 or 3 years down my bachelor's, which is 4 years in Spain, I kind of realized, I'm probably not the person who's going to be sitting in front of the computer simulating or programming a model or I don't know, doing some CAD designs, whatever it is. Now, I was 3 years down my bachelor's, obviously, so it was probably not going to be the case that I dropped my engineering bachelor and shifted to some other management career. And it was neither what I wanted, because I always wanted to go on and work in a company that is closely related to technology in some sense. So what I did is look for some adjacent field which would allow me to get into more the business or the management side of things. And what I did is I found an internship position at a startup accelerator and also management consultancy, which was mostly so it was a global company. If you look at the locations in the office, but it was rather small, so about 50 people working there. And then I did an internship there where I was both managing the scouting, the technology scouting for startups for the accelerator program, but I was also participating in one of our consulting projects where I first learned, the world of strategy consulting, of business consulting, helping your clients realize their goals, very much tied to technology, of course, because that's what I was doing on the accelerator side, but also on the on the day-to-day business, on the strategy, on how can we grow business. So that only reinforced the belief that I wanted to go in that direction and shift more to management. So that was by the time when I was already in Munich and starting my master's, which, by the way, it's very much customizable in my university. So I was able to take a lot of courses in business, including corporate finance, project management, and so on. And then all the while, I joined afterwards Siemens, and there I was in the aircraft division, which was pretty innovative department where they were trying to, or well, we're actually manufacturing electric and hybrid engines for aircraft. Again, very, very out of the box business for Siemens, and also a new, a new niche where everything was to be defined. So there I was doing again strategy. So then I was mostly working on Excel and, doing market modeling and projections of how the business was going to develop. Very interesting. And I got also, to do a lot of deep diving into the trends, the technologies. It was very, very interesting time. But then again, these two experiences were somewhat related to aerospace, as you see, right? I mean, it wasn't technically developing anything, but it was on the business side of aerospace. So that already allowed me at least to position myself as a hybrid, if you want, so between an engineer and a management person. And then, I thought, okay, I've tried this field, but why not try something else? I'm still young. I'm still a student. There's still time to change. And I wanted to also, try the services industry. And then I joined TÜV Süd, which is a major provider of testing, inspection, and certification. That's the core business. Now they have other side businesses, but that's mostly what they do. And then I joined for a year there at the corporate strategy and innovation department. And then again, this was completely new industry, completely new field for me. Again, it was also a big company, so about 25,000 people working there. And then, I got to work on a variety of projects ranging from e-mobility to classic certification business that we had, and on a very high level. So working alongside former strategy consultants from top tier consultancies. So overall, very good experience for me, working also on digital business models, running workshops, doing go-to-market strategy. It was very varied, which I really appreciated and enjoyed. And that was until March 2020. So this year. And after that, I almost simultaneously handed in my master's thesis, or a couple of months before. And that's when the search for my current job started and led me here. So I think that gives a little bit of an impression on why, as an aerospace engineer, I ended up joining a chemical company and on a business program.
It definitely gives me a better idea of why you actually made that decision. But I actually like what you said, right? So you mentioned looking for something adjacent to something you're actually interested in, right? So because if I look at your CV, I'm like, okay, you studied aeronautic engineering, but you knew what you were looking for, and then you tried to look for something that would position you to get that thing later. which is something I find really interesting. And it actually worked out, right? So because you went from the internship doing strategy to Siemens and then to TÜV, and I'm sure that helped you in pitching your way into getting into BASF. I think we'll come to that question later, but quite interesting. Thanks for sharing. So you were done with TÜV, and then you started looking for new opportunities, right? When you wanted to for your full-time job. How did BASF and the Top Start program come to mind? Like, what intrigued you to apply for that?
Yeah, so very good question. I think that it's best answered if you look at, my trajectory. So I'm a person that
Mm,
likes trying new things, right? And if I'm not convinced about something or the industry where I'm working on, I'll try to find my way to switch the industry or try something different. Now, in
mm,
that case, so I finished my master's and I had these experiences, previous experiences, and I was at a point where I knew that I wanted to switch more to the management side of things. But to do that, the way I saw it, to get admitted in a management job, let's say overall job, which I didn't have the background for, is to learn more.
mm,
And to learn
mm,
more in my case was mostly rather doing a new master's in management or an MBA, something along those lines, which I didn't want
yeah.
to go into because of financial and time constraints. So I had already spent 6 years studying, 6.5 years. I thought it was time to, devote myself fully to the professional world at this point.
Yeah.
So I started researching more about graduate and trainee programs because in most cases, what I realized about these programs is that companies that are offering them do not just look for the pure hard skills or the pure qualifications, but they
Hmm.
offer you the chance to build those on the job. And they're rather looking not for a specific background, but for a specific skill set or motivation, if you want so, which, I definitely believe motivation as a entry level worker makes a whole lot of a difference. And
Yeah.
that's how I started researching about management trainee programs and graduate programs. And to be honest, 10 months ago, I didn't even know BASF existed. But along that search, no, I was very honest. We will come to this
Right.
later, but I was bluntly telling the recruiter about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so along that search, BASF popped up as the leading chemical company in the world, and I found the Top Start program, which I found very appealing, and I ended up applying for it, and yeah, got the job at the end.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It wasn't that easy, right? You had to go through a lot of steps before you got in. So I think we'll go to
Yeah.
that later. But yeah, quite interesting. So you 10 months ago you didn't know BSF existed and now you're in the program. Can you tell me what was the process like? So you went through the application process, took the test, I guess, and then
Mhm.
did the telephone interview and then the interview with the program manager. Doing all
Correct.
those steps, right? Like, what did you include? I know you've mentioned that a bit, but what do you think really helped you to convince BSF that you were at least the right candidate they were looking for in your CV cover
Mhm.
letter, even though you had no experience or exposure to them before?
So if we look at it from let's look at it as a timeline, right? So the first thing you do
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
apply for a job is you submit your CV, your cover letter, your transcript of records, all of that. But I believe the crucial ones are CV and cover letter. So my CV, I was, as I said, actively applying for several trainee programs, not only at BASF but also at other companies.
Mm, yeah.
And what I tried to do with my CV is make it as easy as possible for the person reading it to get the information they need. I believe you also have some guidelines on your website, Dan, but in my case, my golden rule was not to have longer than one page, and then also the size of the letters, the size of the of the font. I wouldn't go over or below 11, something like that,
Hmm.
and just essentially cut it to the most important things that you need to put there. So I think there's a lot of studies out there that say that an average recruiter spends, 10 to 20 seconds on average, right, on looking at the
Yeah.
at the CVs that they get.
The CV.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I basically divided my CV on three main sections: one for education, one for my previous professional experience, and one for
Mm.
my additional information, which includes everything from societies, courses that I've done, what my hobbies are, which I believe is also
Okay.
important to include in your
Mm.
CV, which IT tools that I have, and so on. Yeah, so that's essentially what I do. Have a nice format, show the recruiter that you've put the time required on that. So mine, I mean, it's not too out of the box, but I have, some coloring or some distinct format, right? I also include my
Okay.
picture always. I know
Mm.
this depends on the country. Sometimes and actually, I think for Germany, it was encouraged not to include it. But to be honest, I think this already gives a sign so that the recruiter can relate better to you if somebody sees your
Mm.
face, right? You're not just a name, you're a person. So
Yeah.
I honestly I didn't follow that advice that in Germany you should not include it. I put it in there. Turned out to work.
Okay.
Yeah. So overall, make it as easy for the recruiter to find the information they need. That's
Mm.
that's the rule of thumb. Then we can go into the specifics if you want, but that's, I believe, the one critical factor that you need to have there. Because if you have too much clutter, it's difficult for them to look for what they need. Then they're not going to spend the time. That they
Yeah.
receive, I don't know, hundreds of applications. So that's the critical factor. Cover letter.
Mm.
The cover letter, I think it's also critical. And for that one, I think it's most importantly to show the person reading that you've done your research. I mean, if I need to highlight one thing about the cover letter, that would be it.
Okay.
So not only research the company, but also research the job posting and essentially tailor your cover letter to that. By that I mean, including specific examples of the latest news about the company. If they have acquired a company recently, you could mention that as an example. If they have restructured recently, or there's some major developments that have gone out in the news in the last half a year or so, include that, because that already shows that your level of interest is high.
It's
And
high.
then,
Mm.
yeah, last but not least, of course, you need to tailor the cover letter, I would say, to the specific job posting that you're applying, right?
Mm.
If a job posting
Mm.
says that you should have had some experience in consulting, then have one paragraph or a couple of sentences at the very least to explain or to give a hint to the recruiter beyond your CV on what you did in your previous consulting job.
Mm-hmm.
Could be
Mm.
now that could be anything, right? But just as a rule of thumb, and very importantly, not making it redundant to your CV. So your
CV.
cover
Yeah.
letter should go beyond your CV and elaborate on the why for the things that you did that you have already in your CV. I think
Mm.
that would be my advice in general for both CV and cover letter.
Okay. So the question was like what you actually included to show BASF that you were the right person for them to
Yeah.
include in the
Okay.
program.
Yeah, so good question. As I said, I tailored it very much to the company. So I was including, I don't know, it was a certain acquisition in this case of BASF. I think it was acquisition of a biotechnology company in the aroma sector. So I was including that in my cover letter. Um,
Okay.
I was tailoring it to the business, explaining, why I find the industry and the business itself interesting for me and what I believe is then the next step. All of these things, of course, in the cover letter. The CV
Mm.
was pretty much standard to all the applications I sent, but then in the
Yeah.
cover letter, I dedicated the time to make one cover letter per job that I applied to.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned really good points here, especially on the CV part. That you need to be make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to read and get the information out, which could either be in the font or in the way the layout is, right? Giving enough space that
Exactly.
it's easy for them to read. And for the picture, that is also important. I think for Germany, actually, you are advised to have a picture because it just gives
Oh,
a
okay.
it gives a different touch to the overall picture. So thanks, and I'm actually very interested and intrigued on how you tailor your CV, your cover letter, to actually include this very detailed information on the acquisition of of a company the company acquired, and even giving them ideas, right? Or saying, okay, yeah, this is what you think could happen in a specific business. I think it just showed the company that you were really interested and you've done your research. Um, so great stuff. Thanks for mentioning that. So I'm just going to go a bit deep, right, into BASF now, because the question is, you got into the program during the pandemic. So you applied to the program and everything was online. You had all your interviews online and you got a job virtually, right? So you never actually did go there in person. Am I right?
You're correct.
So how did you do that? So the question is, because doing this in person is sometimes it's easy because there are a lot of stuff that you can show when you're face to face, but online is quite difficult to stand out. So how did you actually stand out online to prove to them that, hey, you were actually fit for the job and ready to do the job, just to help other people out there who are going through the same
Yeah.
problem now that everything is virtually and they're finding it difficult to actually stand out? What would you advise them to do when they're in similar situations?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say what needs to stand out and what your first point of contact with the company is your CV and your cover letter. So that's where you should be spending, I would say, 80% of your time, especially on the cover
Mm-hmm.
letter. I think that makes the
Yeah.
difference between a candidate that gets the interview and the one that doesn't get the interview. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you get the interview, which generally, if it's a mid to big sized corporation, then it will be with HR managers or recruiters, then I believe it's about following the same advice. So doing your research, right? You need to have very clear specific facts about the company. You need to be prepared to answer specific questions, like, why BASF, why the program, and you need to be convincing about those answers. So
Yeah,
they need
exactly.
to be
Mm-hmm.
the answers that you believe that are right. I mean, not that are right, but what appeals to you. So if you try
Yeah.
to make up a story and then you end up sounding not authentic, that's gonna screw up everything that you've achieved until then, until you got the interview. So don't
Mm-hmm.
lie, be honest with yourself and really ask yourself, okay, why do I want to join the company? Why is it appealing to me? And do not try to write just some fancy story there, because you most likely are not going to sound authentic. And if that's the case and the recruiter finds out, then obviously you're not going to make it to the next round. So
Mm-hmm.
authenticity is core. Of course, there's a set of questions that you need to prepare yourself for. As I mentioned, that's just two of them. But in my case, it's pretty much very clearly I needed to have a story, on why I am applying for that company without being a chemist myself or having any
Mm-hmm.
experience in the in the chemical business. So
Chemical
of course,
industry. Mm-hmm.
I was already prepared to nicely and concisely show my way until I got there. Probably today I spoke too much. I would rather keep it concise, right? And give
Okay.
an overview. Do not try to talk too much and allow the
Mm-hmm.
recruiter to ask questions if they are required.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you need to have your storyline prepared. It depends very much on the case that you're doing. If I need to highlight something, is authenticity, as I said before.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Awesome. What would you say now that you've joined the program? So I think you joined the program or you joined the company in May, right? And
In
and
June.
you joined, sorry, in June, and you started in the middle of the pandemic, which is also something a lot of people would be facing these days, that they start right from home. Do you have any tips to people who are starting their jobs now on how to navigate those first few months, given that you're actually starting from home and not seeing anybody in person?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, Dan. Allow me first, because I forgot to the previous question you were asking about doing the interview process remotely.
Yeah.
And I did not mention a couple of points. I focused on authenticity, but I think it's very important to take the process seriously as much as if it were in person. And by that, I
Mm-hmm.
mean having the right background behind us when we are having the interviews. Do prepare yourself and dress like you would dress for an interview that is in person, because all these little things send messages to the recruiter, right? If you are there
Yeah.
in your t-shirt and your pajamas doing the interview, then of course, even if you don't mean it in that way, you're sending a message. So my best advice would be take it as seriously and follow the same procedure that you would be following if you do it in person.
Person.
Now,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
back to this question, then starting a job in the middle of the pandemic. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's also been a challenge for me. It's been a challenge, especially to connect with colleagues on a more personal level.
Mm.
Needless to mention, you don't have those casual interactions that you would be having, like going for lunch, or just grabbing a coffee and chatting for 5-10 minutes. You don't have this, so you need to be proactive about getting that. And by that I mean proactively scheduling get to know calls with
Mm.
people that are working in my department or in my division. And you need to be proactive about it, because nobody's going to do it for you. I mean, your
Yeah.
manager of course will try most cases to hook you up with certain people, but there's at some point they also have their own responsibilities, and they might give you a push, but at the end of the day it's on you. So I would encourage everybody to go and directly schedule their get to know calls. Don't be afraid. People are generally very welcome to have those kind of calls with you, and are happy to mentor you a little bit when you join the company. But of
Yeah.
course it needs to come from you. They have other things in their mind, and they're not going to come to you in flocks to have that kind of interactions. And then beyond that, I think yeah, it requires a lot of honest communication with your manager.
Yeah.
The first months are difficult in any job, also when you start in person, but starting remotely makes it even more complicated. So you need to
Yeah.
be very specific and very clear about the help that you need from your manager. And that could be anything from IT equipment that you're missing, for example, to just a simple example, but it could be as simple as that, and you
Yeah.
don't know where to get it, to some specific information that you cannot find. Do not be afraid to go and reach out to your manager. He also wants you to be as productive as possible. And we all know this is an extra challenge, but if you don't speak out, you're gonna essentially shoot yourself in the foot. That's what my impression has been. Communicate,
Mm.
communication,
Mm.
communication, communication.
Yeah. I also started in the pandemic, right? So I fully concur with what you just said. It's quite important. Communication plays a huge role here, and proactiveness, right? So be proactive to actually get what you want. Thanks a lot for sharing this. I think you've mentioned quite a lot of important points here, right from authenticity to making sure that your CV is straight to the point when you're applying for these jobs, and also how you were able to navigate your first, I would say, your first month, starting in the middle of the pandemic. So thanks a lot for sharing this. Before we go, right, I just want to touch a bit on the Top Start program a bit, right, just to give the listeners out there, some of which might be interested in the program. If you can just shed a bit light on the program itself, what you think about the program, and how your experience has been within the program, and where you see yourself going in the next 2 or 3 years with the program, just to give people out there who have lots of questions that don't know much, and would want to know from somebody who is in the program to get a bit more insight.
Good question. So the program itself, you find all the information online, but if I need to highlight three things that appealed to me the most, and I'm seeing that they are actually very true once you join, would be one, the responsibility that you get. So you get to work on projects that really matter, that matter to the
Mm-hmm.
business, and that is core to what I wanted. Then the second one, I think most importantly, I already knew this one was going to be so because I had done my research before joining, but it's
Okay.
about who are the other participants. Am I going to challenge myself by being surrounded with these brilliant people? Or is it rather, do I think I already essentially know everything I need to know? If that's the case, then the program is not for you. If you do your research, you go online, you saw on LinkedIn the people that are working there, and you're fascinated by their backgrounds, you would want to share your experience and learn from them. I think this is core to the program. That's one of the things that I am enjoying the most, actually. There's
Mm-hmm.
top people in
Mm-hmm.
there, and that's for me very, very important. And the third thing that appealed to me the most from the Top Start program is the visibility that you get to management. As I said, you get not only to work on projects that matter, but then you also get to present those and to gather the feedback from senior management directly yourself. As just coming out of university as a graduate or after a master's in management or whatever it is, I think this is a unique opportunity that we have, and we need to capitalize on it to grow with BASF. So
Mm.
yeah, I think those three things would be the core to me. To the people that are joining, it's not an easy job, but I assume if you're applying for this program, it's because you want challenge and you want to challenge yourself and step out of your comfort zone, learn new things, then this program
Mm.
is for you. If you want to get comfortable doing a job and spend many years in that job and become an expert in something, but not really challenge yourself every few months, I would say even, then probably this would not be the program for you. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered. There was another question there, Dan, I think.
Yeah, I think you covered most of them. Just to give a general info to people out there to have an inside overview, right, from someone who is in the program compared to what they read online. Because of course, there's a lot of information online, but to get this insider information from someone in
Mhm.
the program, it's something that's very valuable. And you've mentioned quite a lot of them, which is quite nice to have to help those out there who are interested to join the program as well. So thanks a lot, Jose.
Mhm.
Just before I would say now we are in the closing rounds of the interview or the podcast. If you step back a bit, right? So you step back from your shoes as as an employee of BSF, and you've mentioned a lot of stuff in the beginning, from the CV to the cover letter to how to be authentic in the virtual world. So if you were to give someone an advice now, so because the thing is there are a lot of companies that, or the job market today is not very pleasant. And I'm sure you were in a similar situation back then in April, May. So if you were to give someone an advice who is currently applying for something today, what would that be?
Yeah. First of all, research, be flexible. So,
Mm,
as I said, I'm now working in the chemical industry, and it's a fascinating industry. But if I had stayed narrowed focus and trying to join the aerospace sector, I might have not even be employed right now. Being honest,
yeah.
aerospace sector has been hardly hit by the virus, and it's still suffering a lot. So I think number one, be flexible, know what you want to do, of course, but it doesn't mean that if you want to work on finance, you can only go to a bank and work in a bank. There's thousands of companies out there, ours as an example, that has a huge finance department, finance infrastructure, and might be a job that you will actually enjoy more than being a bank. So stay flexible would be the one. And the second one, and I already said it before, but I cannot stress it enough, be authentic. Remember that
Mm,
recruiters, at the end of the day, are people. So beyond the formal requirements of the job, there's always nuances that make them, when they have two similar profiles, decide for one. And I
yeah.
think I'm a firm believer that what makes the difference in these cases is how authentic you are, how natural you portray yourself. And as I was saying before, I was interviewing with BASF, and I was being honest with the recruiters and telling them, I didn't know the company 10 months ago.
Mm,
But now I think it's a very interesting company, and I would be thrilled to
Yeah.
join you because I know you're working on this. I know you have acquired this company. I know you're building a mega complex in Asia, a new Verbund center in
Mm,
Asia, and I had done my research. So the company,
yeah.
they're not judging me because I didn't know the company 10 months ago, but they can tell I'm interested in it, and that's okay. So just be
Yeah.
authentic. Don't be scared. Share your experiences. That's going to help you a lot, especially connecting with somebody through online means. It's a whole difference. People try, or I believe some people out there believe that doing remote interviews online means that you can take the chance to cut corners or cheat a bit. What do I know, right? You might get away with portraying yourself in a different way, but believe me, that's not the case. Recruiters are used to doing this by now. Be as you
They can
are,
tell.
um,
Mm,
and yeah, they can tell. It's like we cannot stress enough. Be authentic and be flexible. At the end of the day, the pieces fall into place. And you
yeah.
know, as I said, 10 months ago, I didn't know the company. If you told me that now I would be working in BASF in the Top Start program and working in the animal nutrition business, I would have told you you're crazy. And now I'm loving it. So
Yeah.
so life takes certain turns, and I believe hard work and perseverance and flexibility will help you getting there where you deserve to be. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. Thanks a lot, Jose. I think a lot of information packed in here and a lot of stuff to learn from your story and how you went to having absolutely no idea about the chemical industry, about BASF 10 months ago, to actually being in a top start program. And I'm sure that most of our readers or listeners who are interested in the program have also taken one or two things from this. So I would say thank you again for taking your time, Jose, and I really, really wish you all the best as you continue the journey in the next 2 to 3 years.
Same to you, Jen. Sorry, Dan. I would be and I will be thrilled to continue sharing this experience with you. We
Yeah,
joined at
yeah,
almost the same time, so I think we're almost in the same stage. And so far, I can say it's been a wonderful journey, and I know it will continue that way. So thank
yeah,
you for inviting me,
definitely.
and yeah, anytime I'm happy to help.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks a lot. Thank you once again for listening to today's episode. If you got any value from this podcast, please hit the subscribe button to stay updated when new episodes are published. Oh, and remember, sharing is caring. Share the podcast with a friend to make sure he or she is not missing out. And as always, you can find all the tools and the templates you need on blitzcareer.de. Until then, I wish you a wonderful time ahead. Bye bye and stay safe.